All right, let's get things going here. Welcome, everybody. This is Imagine Academy Quarantine Session number 4. This is exocad Plovdiv Pro Tips and Tricks. My name is Neil DeMazier. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at Imagine. And these are the Imagine Academy Quarantine Sessions, which is a service that we're providing to the industry here for education, and maybe just a nice welcome distraction from all the craziness that we're all going through right now. Hope everybody out there is healthy, and we're looking forward to sharing some stuff with you today. Before we get going, I just want to share a few ground rules here. First off, if you could mute your audio and turn off your video for the duration of the presentation. We're going to be doing audio and video for presenters only today, so we'd appreciate that. Number 2, there is continuing education credit available for today's course, so if you would like to take us up on that offer, just send me a chat via the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom screen here. Send me your CDT number or your RD number, and we can get you signed up for the continuing education credit. Alternatively, I'll be putting my email address in the chat screen here on the Zoom before the end of the presentation today, so you can email me directly with your CDT number, and we'll get you signed up for those continuing education credits. Last 2 things, we're going to be posting the video of today's presentation on our YouTube channel next week, so keep an eye out for that. We'll also have links for it on our website, which is imagineusa.com. So keep an eye out for that. And last but not least, if you have any questions throughout the presentation today, send those all either to the group or to myself privately via the chat function here on Zoom. I'll be sure to route all of those questions over to Andy, who is our presenter today, and we'll be sure to get those answered for you. So without any further ado, this is session number 4, Plovdiv Pro Tips and Tricks, and I'd like to introduce Andy Huynh, who's one of our CAD/CAM installation technicians, trainers, and just overall exocad gurus. So Andy, if you're all set, I think you've got your audio and your video turned on there. I'll let you take it away. And ladies and gentlemen, Andy Huynh.
Thank you for the introduction, Neil. So I want to get started. Hopefully everyone's doing fine and safe out there today. So today we're going to be going over exocad's latest releases, Plovdiv. We're going to be covering new features and updates, and we are going over 3 recorded demos that we can kind of skip through just to highlight all the new features. If anyone has any questions towards the end after the presentation, we can kind of go into and go over anything over a live demonstration on exocad as well. If there's time available. So starting off, 1 second. So exocad's latest features really focuses on being able to print and mill denture bases and denture teeth. So the new design parameters for the Max will give the users freedom of choice in their digital design production. Here we can see that you're able to print your base in your teeth, mill your base, trim the teeth, and so on. Each of these parameters will allow different customization options here in the advanced parameters section. Here in the printed dentures, we have, it'll offer efficiency and low-cost solutions for a lot of laboratories and dental clinics using the software to produce 2 files, which is the denture base and the denture teeth. You can also you can print your single teeth, your full arch teeth, and your denture base. Before that's available in the newest update, you're going to be able to print your digital try-in. Previously, that was only available in the beta testing mode. Now it's going to be available in the full workflow. Here we have, previously you were only able to design full mouth dentures, upper and lower. In the new Plovdiv release, you're able to do just a single arch denture, which is going to save you a lot of time. Before, we had to do a workaround and kind of click a dummy arch to get just one arch out. Now you can do it in the wizard mode, and the steps are much more simplified. And you have the extensive library of virtual articulators, which includes the dinar and the newest option, which is the FAG Quickmaster. And we can go over a quick list of that at the end as well, all the articulators that are provided. And you have the option to manually position the virtual articulator, and now you can just use it to measure distances using the articulator just by clicking points. Okay, here we're going to go into a live demonstration of a single arch denture demo. And we're going to go here, we're just going to set one arch as the full denture and the other as the antagonist. And we're going to go ahead and skip towards the parameters now. As you can see here, we're going to be setting this as a printed base and milled teeth. And you can see here, as we change the parameters, each of these is going to change depending on which one you select. And here at the end here, you can see we see that there's an optimize for monoblock try-in, and that's going to add the wizard step at the end there to allow you to generate a try-in instead of both the model and the denture base and the teeth. So we're going to go in here into design. All right. As you can see here, we're going to start our virtual articulator. And again, this is a separate module that you can add on. And here are the list of articulators here for exocad. And we're going to use the FAG Quickmaster in this example. Using the virtual articulator, we can actually re-articulate the model virtually by using the occlusal plane given, or you can click on the model itself. So we're going to go ahead and set our points. And again, this is just a 3-click process. I've gotten a lot of questions about if exocad is going to develop a more exact way to place your model in your virtual articulator. As of right now, this is going to be your best option. And we're just going to be clicking our incisal point and a point on the left and right molars. Skipping ahead here. And after the model has been placed, now we can adjust all of the articulator functions. Here and here. And then of course you can have your protrusion, retrusion, lateral protrusion, and left and right. So we'll go ahead and adjust those values here as well. Skipping ahead. Once that simulation is finished, we're just going to click OK. And then here, when you use the slide bar here in the corner, we'll actually see the jaws move from your articulator. Now, going forward for the model analysis, those familiar with the previous versions of exocad, when you had to do one denture, you had to do the full upper and lower model analysis. And that could take anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes if you're quick. Here, we're just going to do it in 3 different steps, just a few clicks in each step, which is reducing your workflow by more than half. Again, we're just going to be setting our occlusal plane. Here, what we're doing is just making the model a little bit more translucent so we can actually see which dots are required for the left and right. If getting those mixed up, you're going to have to start over again, and that's something we'll want to avoid. Again, here we're going to be doing our premolars and then our incisal point. Now you have the option to manually adjust your midline. Skipping ahead here. Let's go back a little bit. Now we're going to actually be placing the denture teeth. And if you notice, placing the denture teeth is going to be different than just placing like a full arch set of teeth. You're going to be working with your anteriors and then working with your posteriors separately. Here you have a full library of different denture teeth that you can use, but only some of them are going to be scalable. As you can see here, the ones, if we select different ones, they're not going to fit our arch as nicely as, say, the exocad generic libraries. So we'll go ahead and we'll place those. Skipping ahead here, we'll just go back to the generic. So now we're in our tooth placement step. And after you place the library teeth, now you can kind of adjust it from here. And since the chain mode isn't really the focus of this demonstration, we're going to skip ahead as well. But here, just some quick tips when placing teeth, especially in full arches. I found that when you place the posteriors, like second or third molars first, and then place numbers 8 and 9, and then work your way in between those 2 points is the fastest way to do it. And here we're just going into the free forming, so we can just skip ahead here. Just basic exocad functions at this point. All right, so now once we're happy with the free forming, we're going to click next. And we're going to be focusing now on the denture base. Anywhere that you can see this light shaded pink area is going to be your undercut. When setting it, you're going to just pick your view and then changing the insertion direction of your denture base bottom from clicking set insertion direction from view. And with any denture base, you're going to want a little bit of undercut just for the retention. Just like that. So we'll skip ahead here. Once we're happy with our insertion direction. And then now this example that was recorded during a training session, when marking this margin, of course, you want to mark your margin all along the groove that was already drilled out on the model itself. But here, the margin was marked just shy of that, just showing you where you can mark it. But ideally, you want to mark it right in the groove for the best gingiva dental base. As you can see, as we mark along here, we're just shy of that. Ideally, you want to go right into the groove. Again, we're just skipping ahead. All right, so here your denture base has formed. We have the option to go ahead now and to freeform. And as you can see, this artifact that generated past our margin there, that's because we didn't place our margin in the most ideal spot. If we move that down a little bit further, you wouldn't get that. All right. Here you can adjust your thickness and how smooth you want your denture base. Again, we found that leaving it default is the best aesthetically, but again, that's just preference. So since we're going to be milling the teeth and printing the denture base, it's giving us the option to put connectors in between the teeth so that they'll all be one piece. So here we're just going to be doing our connectors. And again, we'll just skip ahead here. I found it easiest when doing these connectors, especially during a full arch, to just do it from one direction at first, get them into position, and then look occlusally and get them in the right position that way. So we'll do it twice. We'll move them up, and then looking occlusally, we'll move it sideways, laterally. Again here, just a quick demonstration. Then we'll skip ahead. Here we're given the option to, again, once again, freeform our gingiva base, or dental base, sorry. And as I mentioned before, the single arch denture is the new feature, because before you had to do both upper and lower before Plovdiv. All right, now we can actually adapt the teeth to the denture base. So we'll go ahead and do our settings, our minimum thickness, our tooth pocket gap, and then we can just skip ahead so we can see what that looks like here. Again, I know I'm moving kind of fast, but we will answer all these questions towards the end. And as you can see here, the gingiva, the denture base has adapted to the teeth as well as the connectors. Again, we'll just skip ahead. And now we're going to be merging our teeth. So now we have our teeth that we're going to mill. And then you have your, let's see here, we can generate our monoblock. Okay, let me show you how we got there. So after you're done designing your teeth and your denture base, you have the option to go and create your trian. So we're going to do merge to monoblock. Again, we'll just skip ahead here. And when you have the option to optimize for 3D printing, that's going to mean you're going to make it like watertight and ready to go right into your nesting software. So here, we're just going to skip ahead till we finish. Now it's not going to appear right away in your CAD design folder or CAD design window. It's actually going to be pulled up in your file explorer. So we can actually go into our Windows File Explorer and open that up so we can see what it looks like here. And this is your trian. Of course, a poor example just because the edges are a little bit thin there, but if we did mark our margins in the correct spot, it would be a little bit thicker. So just to showcase an example. All right. I know we moved kind of quick there, but again, that's just a quick example of how to do a single arch denture in new Plovdiv. So also new is going to be your jaw motion import. When designing restorations or splints, you start with the patient motion, which needs to be corrected. In prior versions, the users had to select either patient motion or virtual articulator for the design of the appliance or restorations. Now it's possible to import the articulator settings and model positions from the analysis of the motion data and use the virtual articulator for the design of the appliance. You can also save time by eliminating the Facebook transfer process, the calculated values provided in the scan positions within the articulator. Optimal and calculated parameters are automatically applied to the virtual articulator, and as well as just general overall improvements to the interface, just to make the import of the motion data a little bit more accessible. All right, moving on to our next example. They've made vast improvements to the thimble crown bridge workflow. I know we're offering another workshop, webinar that goes into a lot of detail, but here we're just going to do a quick demonstration just to show and exhibit the new features.
Which incidentally, if folks want to learn more about the thimble design in exocad Plovdiv, that presentation is going to be happening next week. That is next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Just wanted to let folks know that.
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are just going to do a quick start to finish design of a thimble workflow, but this is just going to be very quick. We've split an all-on-4 case into 3 different bridges, which is something you wouldn't ever do clinically, but we just wanted to show that you can split different bridges and create different, have different options while designing. So this is just purely for example. The workshop next week will show you an actual case that would go into a patient's mouth. All right, so jumping into the next example, we're going to be doing, and we're actually going to be doing a cutback, or give you the option to do a cutback on top of your thimbles as well in this setup. So here we're going to set this up as coping, and yeah, and then you have the option here to say design with thimble crown workflow. Yes, that's going to be what's new here. And as you can see, we've separated the bridges. Let me go back just a little bit. So screw retained here. So let me pause this. So we're going to be separating the bridges just to show an example from 5 to 6 and 11 and 12. Again, each implant site is screw retained. We're going to have a pre-op model. And again, the examples we're showing here are all the samples included in Plovdiv. Again, we're just going to skip ahead. All right, so we have our pre-op denture. And I know we kind of skipped over the smile creator. This isn't the focus of this demonstration, but if anyone has any questions about that, you can reach out to me privately and we can kind of go over that as well. So in the first step, we're just doing our emergence profiles. We can go ahead. A lot of times we can tell clients to skip this step just because you can always edit your emergence profiles later on once the design is merged together. But here we're just doing it step by step. For the demonstration, we're just going to skip ahead here and go right into tooth placement. So to expand on tooth placement methodology, as I mentioned before, I found it easiest to place the posteriors first and then lock them in. As you can see that you have 2 control spheres behind the furthest most tooth, and that's going to be to lock the chain in position rather than that tooth specifically. So, and again, control is to rotate and shift is to scale. Again, so we're going to lock each posterior tooth in position. And I'm going to skip around just because we are going to just get through and show the whole thing rather than focus on just the chain mode, which isn't the highlight here. So let's skip ahead. So after the posterior teeth are locked in, we move towards the canines and we'll lock those into position next. Now, a lot of old users that I've met would actually do their full arches in the simple mode, placing and positioning 1 tooth at a time, just because the chain mode can get a little bit finicky to new users. But after maybe a couple tries, we highly recommend going to the chain mode, especially for full arches, because it's going to save you so much time. So here we're just using our pre-op as a guide. So we've locked in the posteriors, locked in the canines, and now we work from the middle out. So mesially and then work distally from here. Again, so we'll just lock it in. I'm going to skip ahead. So once we have our teeth placement, we can actually go right into above and bottoms. Now here we can, if you had skipped the emergence profile before, you could do it now. Since we've already done it, you can control how much pressure you're creating against your gingiva. Again, that's just basic crown design. We can skip ahead here. All right, so now we're gonna have the option to freeform. Again, we'll just skip ahead and we'll freeform at the end. Here you have the option to adapt to your pre-op. We just used it as a guide, so we're not going to do that. So much like the denture bottom in the previous design, we're going to be generating a virtual wax-up bottom. Again, that's just the bottom of your restoration against the gingiva. So we'll pick a nice insertion direction that reduces our undercut. And then from there, once we're happy, the blue arrow indicates the original position, the green arrow indicates the angle that you've now selected. So we'll skip ahead here. All right. So now we're going to go into our gingiva margin. Here you have the option to kind of smooth things away. If you don't want any definition on the palatal area, we can go ahead and smooth that. But from here, we're just going to skip ahead so that we can get to the margin, the gingiva design. So here it gives you the option to draw your gingiva. Now we're going to be doing 3 different gingiva margins around 3 different bridges, the 2 posterior bridges and the anterior bridge. And again, it gave us this option because we separated the connectors in the setup in the beginning. Here we're going to be creating our gingiva, just like that. Right? So the gingiva forms around each set of teeth. So we're going to just skip to the next bridge. And again, as you can see, it highlights and deselects the teeth that you are working on versus the ones you aren't, just to make it easier for you to visualize. So we can actually just go ahead and skip to the end of this process. And just a quick tip here in the gingiva design process, if you ever notice that your gingiva doesn't actually encapsulate your teeth right away, that could either mean that you've placed your teeth a little too far away from your model base and the gingiva isn't able to adapt up to it. So to solve that, you would actually have to move the library teeth and then redraw that margin, or just change it and readapt it for the gingiva to actually capture that tooth. And then you can kind of move that tooth with the freeform option into the correct position. And that's only if you see the gingiva didn't actually go up and adapt to that library tooth. Here we didn't run into that problem, but I've seen clients actually place their teeth a little bit higher just to account for, say, the bite, and the gingiva wouldn't merge correctly. In this step, we have the option to freeform. You see the small regions versus huge regions. Here I like to focus and actually fill in our black triangles so we can take our small region and just pull it up in between the teeth. Right, so we're just free forming. I'm just skipping along. And in the next step, we're going to get into the thimble design.
Hey, Andy, real quick question
Yes.
here from the audience. Nikolai wants to know, can you adjust the screw channel size from default?
The screw channel size from default. So that's going to be, we didn't change the option on my version of exocad, but I'll have to double check that. If he shoots me an email, I can give him a direct answer. We generally don't change the screw channel sizing when it's made, when it's used with a library. You can definitely do that if you were doing like screw retained manual positioning, when you're actually manually placing the screw channel yourself. I haven't done it to where I had to change it when I'm using a library and a scan body, but I can definitely look into that for you.
Gotcha. Great. Nikolai, I'll note down your information and we'll get back to you on that specific question. Andy, Nikolai just kind of followed up there and he's noted that some people are using newer multi-unit screws that are slightly larger. I don't know if you've had any experience with those multi-unit screws yourself.
I have not. I haven't run into the issue where the screws are a little bit larger than the predetermined library, but I can go back and just double check the settings to see if we can adjust the sizing. But those screw channel sizings are predetermined by the scan body in the library. So I'll have to double check to see if we can adjust those, to see if the user can adjust it on their end or if we have to adjust it on our end.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Nikolai, it looks like these, 25% bigger third-party multi-unit screws that you're using, if they're not adjustable within exocad, that's where your distributor, such as Imagine, if you got it from us, you can work with us and we can sort of customize a library to suit those screws. That's something that you need. So, but we'll get back to you either way, Nikolai. Thanks for the question.
Thank you for explaining that, Neil. Yeah, very well put. So here we're actually going into the thimble design portion. All we have to do is just select thimble from the cutback design library. Let me just go back a quick step here. So after we're done freeforming the gingiva, the next step would be the shrinking. And as you can see here, the thimble library is already set up and all ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and click apply on that. All right. So now you have the option to freeform your thimbles. As you can see, the automatic thimble placements aren't always ideal because depending on your doctor's preferences or your preferences, you want the margins to either be a little bit supergingival or subgingival. That's all depending. But you can see here, using the anatomy tab in the freeform, you can push and pull the collars of the margins of the thimbles in and out of the gingiva. And we'll just skip here. All right. So in the next step, we're going to be drawing the margins for the crowns that are going to be sitting right on top of our thimbles, which is nice. Once you mark one here, the software is going to automatically do the rest for you. So once we click next, as you can see, it's going to automatically do it. All right, we'll skip ahead here. And now, as you can see, just like your simple crown design, you have your crown bottom step, except this one's called thimble crown bottom, where you can adjust where your cement gaps are and how big or how small you want the collar of the cement gap to be. After that, we'll click next here to generate our crowns. Here is just another free-forming step once those crowns are finally generated. Okay. And again, once you adjust the crowns, you have the option to then freeform your gingiva again against your newly freeformed crowns. And again, this part is definitely all up to preference, but you can go supra or subgingival with your crown design. Okay, skipping ahead. All right. So now in the next step, after we're happy with our gingiva freeform, we're going into, you have the option to further reduce your crowns. And as you can see here, we're adapting the thimbles, adapting the gingiva to the thimbles now. So we'll show that process. Right? And then after you adapt your thimbles to your gingiva, or I'm sorry, adapting your gingiva to your thimbles, you have the option to once again freeform and smooth over any areas that are either too sharp or too rough. A quick tip here when using the smooth function, if you want to smooth something but you don't want to completely blast it away and lose the overall shape, if you hold control while smoothing, it's actually going to be a shape preserving smooth. So you'll smooth the edges but keep the overall shape of whatever you're smoothing down. All right, so once we're done adapting our gingiva, the next step, because we call these copings and reduced pontics, you have the option to reduce your crowns for either facial cutback or anything else on top of your thimbles. See, as you can see here, we can shrink, or you can use your exclude selected parts and just highlight the lingual side and just reduce the facial if you wanted to stack porcelain. All right, and then you have your multi-level cutback option, which isn't a new feature, but if you wanted to further shrink what you've already shrunk here, you can paint certain areas and shrink again. But just for the sake of this example, we're not going to do any facial shrinking. Here we have the connectors, so we can go ahead and just skip that. All right, so here we have our thimbles, which are going to be connected to our gingiva, and then you have your crowns, which are going to go on top of your thimbles. So I can show you those 3 separate STLs now. As you can see here, it's just merging. All right. Okay, as you can see here, we have essentially 6 different pieces. So you have your thimble and your gingiva, and then you have your bridges. All right, so I know we kind of rushed through that. Again, please register for the course we're offering next week for your start to finish thimble design, but that is just an overall quick demonstration of exocad's latest and improved thimble design workflow. All right, so going into the next example, we have your design on scan substructures. So your large virtual wax ups or offset structures can be designed in and can be formed with a large margin and wax up bottom for all the teeth. And you can combine that with thimble crown workflow to create your bridges with anatomic shapes in one design. Here you can actually add attachments to your offset bars, which is also new. The advanced dedicated workflows design offset structures on scanned bars are now available, which includes the reconstruction type offset substructure. Optionally, you can add a new donut or ring shaped option here, as you can see. And then you have the additional option to create a gingiva part. And again, we're going to go into a quick demonstration of this feature as well. So we're going to call this an offset coping. And what we're going to do is when you have the implant type, you're going to select substructure bar. And I've seen clients do this before, and they milled this out in, say, Crystal Ultra. So this would be like a Crystal Ultra sleeve for zirconia full arch that would sit on top of this offset coping sleeve. So just a quick demonstration. This is going to be a 2-3 minute example here. All right, again, we're going to be creating our wax up bottom. We're going to be drawing our margin, which is going to be right around the scan bar. And again, you're going to be screwing down your bar into your model and scanning that in for this example. So we're just going to be creating like a sleeve. Then we're just adjusting our margins. Once we're happy with our margins, yeah, as you can see, that blue area is just going to be where we blocked it off from our insertion direction. And now, much like your crown design, you have your wax up bottom, which is going to be your cement gap settings and defining the areas where you don't want any cement gap at all. And here is your offset bar. And now you can always adjust that. And you also have the option to adjust how thick you would want that to be as well. Again, this is just free-forming smoothing. And then here in the attachments tab is going to be where you can attach your ring donuts or whatever else. And it's an extensive library. So we're just going to skip ahead. And generally here, so usually with offset bars or offset copings like this, when it first generates, it's very rough. So what I like to do is I like to just smooth it down all the way, and then also use that control feature to just smooth it, but keep it shape, and then just quickly decrease my strength in my brush, and then just gently add across anywhere that the minimum thickness is poking through. And again, you have the option to add or remove these attachments. Again, this is just an example of that sleeve. And then you can turn on your True Smile just to see an actual picture of it. All right. Okay, so that was your offset bar example in the wizard mode. So a different option in Plovdiv is the immediate load feature. You can use directly from Exoplan files and design provisional restorations or abutments directly from the planned implant position. You can make use of possibly a full in-house production or design immediate provisionals for the dentist before they even start the surgery. An example that we're showing here is that once you use your scan body and scan it in and import that information, you can actually rotate the implant now. Before, if the scan body or something was placed in and scanned in incorrectly, you would have to scan it in again. Now you can actually change the timing of the implant, timing of the scan body in the design. There's now incorporated smooth combination of partial CAD and dental CAD with a combined workflow that enables virtual gingiva-borne bridges on top of a partial framework design, thus supporting highly automated production of removables. You can mill or print your teeth and gingiva yourself. The dental CAD can detect partial CAD designs automatically in the related wizard steps. And then the virtual gingiva bottoms considered loaded partial CAD files for the bottom design.
Hey, Andy, real quick question here,
Yep.
again from our friend Nikolai here. When you set up projects, are there hotkeys or can they be set up so that you don't have to move the mouse around so much? So yeah, he's talking about using hotkeys or shortcut keys to, you know, sort of make your, reduce your mouse clicks and make things more efficient.
Well, when setting a case up in your DB?
I think, yeah, setting up in the DB or just within the design, yeah.
Okay, so there are certain hotkeys that come to mind. And again, I would have to refer to our in-house designers to which ones are the most efficient. But let's say when you're setting up a case and you have a full arch and each of them has a prep area and all of them are the same prescription, you can use Control or Shift to select all of those teeth. So I'm going to just show you an example here really quick. And again, this is a good question. So let me just go into the setup. And also, and while this is loading, you can actually use when you're in the free form, you can actually use 1 and 2 hotkeys, 1 and 2 to switch back between add, remove, and then smooth, flatten. So my mouse never goes from my design to that window. I just actually switch from 1 and 2, and then Control and Shift to control to use your size and your strength. So you never have to go back and forth between the windows. But let's say we're setting up tooth number 4, or we can do this first. Default, tests, and we'll just do default here. All right, so when you're setting up a case, let's say this is anatomic crown and zirconia, and we'll just say screw retained, right? You can actually hold Control and click each different tooth that are all the same, I guess, prescription. and then you can control it that way, rather than going to number 4, changing all of your parameters, going back, and then doing the same thing for number 6. And then actually, if you hold shift, it'll actually, from 4 to 15 or wherever you clicked, will highlight all of those teeth as well. So control to do individual teeth, shift to select all of it in between. And let me actually pull up a freeform example so I can show you what I mean to, let's say, one second. Yeah, let's just load this. Oops. All right. And then another quick one, what I was explaining to you before, once this loads. So in the expert mode, let's freeform the merge reconstruction so I can show you really quick what I mean. So in free, a lot of times I see clients when they're adding and removing, like they're adding here and they're going back and clicking smooth here. But if you use your 1 and 2 buttons, you can actually switch between them. And then of course use control to use your strength and shift to use your size. So those are the main hotkeys that probably will save you the most time, because a lot of clients spend time in the freeform step and they're going back and forth between the window and their design, losing their place. If you use the hotkeys to go in between add and remove and smooth flatten, and then control and shift to change your strength and your size, then that's going to save you a lot of time. That would be my tips there as far as setting up, and then once you're in the design. I hope that answers your questions. I can definitely send you like a sheet of hotkeys that exocad recommends, but those options there are the most time saving and the most commonly used. All right. So in Model Creator, there are different options now that you can actually select to increase the accuracy of your fit. So you have what they call dynamic offsets for lab analogs. Before, it was just like your horizontal gap and your vertical gap. But now you can actually control the offsets that fit right around these lab analogs, which is nice. And this is a big one that a lot of doctors have asked about. Before, there was no workflow that allowed you to do essentially like a mock-up. Like you would take pre-existing dentition and you would place your Pontic teeth over that, and they just want to, hey, once I place these Pontic teeth over that, I just want to print this. There was no streamlined way to do that, but now exocad, at least it's in the beta mode, but you have the option to just place these Pontic teeth over pre-existing dentition and create a printable model from that. Before, we'd have to go into the expert mode and select the whole exterior, delete the inside. It was very cumbersome, but now they've made it much more streamlined into creating quick diagnostic wax ups for dentists to show patients, because the easiest way to sell a case would be to show them the final very quickly, and this is the best way to do that. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Whatever questions that I can answer really quickly right now, I'm more than happy to. If we can't get to it today, please shoot me an email. It's going to be Andy, A-N-D-Y, at imagineusa.com. And whatever I can answer, I can definitely get that from you, from either our in-house experts or exocad themselves. So again, I know we just did really quick examples of the new features, but please shoot me an email. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you got something from it, and hope everyone stays safe.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy.